Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Rick Lopes, R-I-C-K-L-O-P-E-S, with the Contractors State License Board. Alongside me is Jill Ravitch. Jill is the District Attorney here in Sonoma County. She'll be speaking with you in just a few moments. The reason that we're here today is to announce the results of an undercover sting operation that the Contractors Board and the Sonoma County District Attorney's Office conducted this past Saturday. And ever since the fires came through this area at Coffee Park and throughout not only Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, and neighboring counties, Napa, Lake counties, Mendocino counties, and other counties around the state, the Contractors Board has been committed to work with the local district attorneys to try to get the word out to protect the fire survivors so they don't become victimized a second time during the rebuilding process. Very early on, we were in all the fire areas, including here in Santa Rosa, putting up warning signs, warning unlicensed contractors that if they did come into this area and they were caught contracting without a license, that there was a potential that they were going to face a felony charge. Well, we're here to report to you today that that is now coming to fruition. We are seeing unlicensed contractors coming into the fire zones trying to get work. So we posed as a fire survivor and we conducted a sting operation. We invited people who were advertising locally on Craigslist for fire-related work. We had them come out and give us a bid on a partially damaged house. You can see some pictures of that sting property. We had them, some people come out to give us bids on framing. We were looking for approximately 10 to 20 foot building, a room we tried to get them to frame. And so we got a number of people that came out and gave us bids for that. We also had some people who were advertising for plumbing work that came out and gave us some jobs on reestablishing the plumbing for this part of the house. And then we also had one electrician who was advertising for that came out to give us a bid for reestablishing the electrical there in the house. So in the one-day operation that we did last Saturday, we caught a total of 13 people for contracting, or at least I'll run through the different the charges that they're now going to be facing. So we caught a total of 13 people. Now 10 of those people are going to be charged with contracting without a license in a declared disaster area. Now normally contracting without a license is charged as a criminal misdemeanor, but because of the declaration of an emergency and a natural disaster, the penalties are increased. So the district attorney has the option of charging these as a felony. And very early on, the district attorney and the Contractors Board were very serious and upfront that that's what we were going to be looking at for anybody that we caught. So these 10 people that we caught actually giving us bids for the jobs, and I want to say that the jobs ranged for the framing, they range from one bid of, and then think of this, it's a 10 by 20 room. Some people think that, yeah, the unlicensed guys are going to give me a great price, so I'm going to go with them. But the bid for basically the same job varied from $850 all the way up to $13,000. So they're all over the board, and it really is par for the course for unlicensed contractors because there's no saying these people know what they're doing. But we had 10 people come out and give us bids that range from $850 to $13,000. We also had plumbing contractors gave us bids that range from $1,500 to $4,500. And the one electrician, the guy who said he was an electrician, that came out and gave us a bid for $2,100. So these are significant bids, well over the $500 limit where you need to have a license. $500, any job that's over $500 in both labor and materials combined has to be done by somebody with a state license. So all of these people gave us bids that exceeded that. So 10 of them will now face the contracting without a license with the felony enhancement. We also had 2 of those, and this is a really important thing to remember as we'll go through our consumer tips in a few minutes. 2 of the people who came out actually used to be licensed contractors, but in one case, one of their licenses expired in 2003, so almost 15 years ago, and they came out using that license number and trying to pass on that they were still licensed. The other one, their license expired in 2010, so upwards of 8 years ago. So these are people who just didn't have their license expired. These are people that made the concerted effort to defraud the people by passing themselves off as a licensed contractor. So they're also going to be facing, there's actually a penalty for them and a felony charge for contracting, but also by using a contractor's license that is not their own. In this case, because the licenses were expired for such a long period of time, they no longer have those licenses. And all 13 people that were involved and got invited to the sting will face a charge of illegal advertising. As consumers are looking to hire contractors and they're looking at advertisements, they need to know that by law, contractors are required to either have their license number in that ad, or if they're unlicensed, they can still advertise, but the ad needs to say that they're not licensed, and they can't advertise for the kinds of things that would cost more than $500, which is a limit. So if somebody's got an ad in there saying they can rebuild your house, and they say I'm unlicensed, that's still in violation of the law because they can't advertise for jobs that would that the average person would consider that would be more than $500. So all 13 people, and in 3 of the cases, the people actually didn't give us bids, but we are going to be citing them with misdemeanors. So 13 misdemeanors and a total of 12 felony charges that came from this. And I also want to note that we are starting to see an increase. We knew early on that a lot of the fire survivors were really going to be focused on the insurance and the debris cleanup and those kinds of things. It was going to take them a while to begin to think about the rebuilding process. So we've been out here, we've been in the local assistance centers, we've done a lot of outreach to try to reach them, but now we are also doing weekly sweep operations with the district attorney's office going out, and actually we have one of those sweeps going on as we speak. So we're out there trying to inform the people and also looking for people who are out there trying to break the law. And we are starting to hear about more unlicensed contractors, not only the ones that we caught in the sting operation, we have come across a few on our own, but we're starting to hear from the licensed contractors out there that they're seeing them. This is especially in the areas of tree removal and fencing. So the fire survivors should be, very careful, especially if anybody's approaching them or if they're looking to have fences built or tree removals, that if the job's going to be more than $500, that they do need to have a contractor's license. So that's a basic rundown of what happened at the operation. In a few moments, we'll talk a little bit about the consumer tips. But what's going to happen now is our cases are being put together, and in the next 2 weeks, we expect to turn those cases over to the district attorney's office, and it'll be their responsibility for prosecuting them. So right now, I'd like to have Jill Ravitch, who is the Sonoma County District Attorney, speak with you about their commitments to following through on these cases.
Thanks, Rick. I'm really pleased to be here because it's the culmination of a great effort that we put together with the Contractors Licensing Board. I remember saying months ago when there was still debris in this area that I'm standing in now, if you come here, if you violate the law, I'm going to prosecute you. And I've been true to that word. Not only have we gone after price gougers, but now we're going after unlicensed contractors. And I look forward to reviewing these reports, and we will be prosecuting the offenders to the fullest extent of the law. I think what's important to know is it's not over. There are still going to be people coming into this area who are going to be acting illegally. So it's really incumbent upon the consumer, the fire survivors, to be smart, to listen to the consumer tips that Rick is going to give us right now, to access their website, to access the DA's website as well, to find out how they can protect themselves against people that are unlicensed. And listen, you may ask yourself, what's the big deal? Well, unlicensed contractors bring a lot of workers with them. These workers are not protected. So it's not only the consumer that's at risk, it's the workers that they engage as well. So from a public safety standpoint, this is a serious violation in our community. We are all working together to rebuild Sonoma County. Let's do it in a safe way so that we can continue to thrive. Thank you.
I have a question. If a consumer knowingly hires somebody that they know is not licensed because they think they're going to save a lot of money or they make some sort of special deal, are they on the hook for anything themselves?
It's the contractor who's on the hook. They are the ones that are supposed to be licensed. The consumer, the only thing they're on the hook for is fraudulent work or faulty work for that matter, because they're not being properly supervised or overseen.
Yeah, the laws have been pretty clear about that. Even if you are a consumer and you knowingly hire an unlicensed contractor, the law does consider you still to be a victim if you do hire an unlicensed contractor. Yes.
I just want to ask you one other question, and that is this. Because there is such a huge amount of work to do here, and we don't have really enough contractors to do it according to the folks up here, there is reciprocity with other states. Can you talk about that and why that can be helpful?
Absolutely. We are seeing people coming in from out of state and looking to come here. The California Contractor State License Board does have reciprocity agreements with 3 states here in the West: Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona. So in order to get your contractor's license, you have to pass 2 different tests. One is a business law and one is a trade test. Now, if you're a general contractor in one of those 3 states, by the reciprocity agreement, it cuts down you not having to take the trade test because you've already demonstrated that you've passed that, you know what you're doing. You still do have to pass the California law test, but it does streamline the process, and we'll actually look to expedite those kinds of licenses if we find out that they specifically want to come into the fire areas.
How do people know that they are really qualified to do this and have been certified by the state?
Well, the biggest thing to do is, and it's a great new feature that we've got out, is the first question you want to automatically ask when you're looking for somebody, the first question on your mind should be, is this person properly licensed by the state? So if you happen to be looking at advertising, by law they're required to have their license number in any advertising. an ad on Craigslist, an ad somewhere else online, a flyer that shows up. If you see a truck parked on a street and it's got the Joe's Construction on it, it needs to have that license number in it. So even before you call Joe up to come out and give you a bid, you can go to our website, take a look at that license, plug in the number, take a look, make sure it's really Joe's Contracting, that they're actually, the license isn't expired. Like the two cases I mentioned, if you actually looked up the licenses that they showed, you would have seen that they expired, either in 2010 or 2003. So you want to check for that. When they actually come out to give you a bid, if they give you a business card, it's got to have the license number. Any kind of a bid they give you, it's got to have that license number. So they need to show that they are licensed.
So they be given some sort of documentation showing they're indeed qualified to do their work within the state of California.
Absolutely. They also have a plastic pocket license with them. It looks like a credit card, about the size of a credit card. You can actually ask them to see that. And the other new feature I want to note, we've got a shot of it here. It just launched on our website. In the past, we've had the ability to go up and, as I mentioned, to look up a contractor's license status. You can find out about their workers' comp, which I'll talk about in a moment because that's critically important. But it gives you their bond information, a lot of information about that licensee. But what we've done now is we've created a feature on our website where it's been really difficult in the past for consumers to say, where do I even start? Now we've got a way for them to be able to build their own list of contractors licensed in a specific area. So for example, if you're here in Santa Rosa and you want to get a list of all the licensed general contractors, which is our B classification, all you have to do is to go to the feature, type in Santa Rosa, go down to the drop-down list, type in, get the B contractor and search, and you're going to come up with a list. I believe there's about 870 of them in Santa Rosa. And so that can begin your search. You can click on each one of those, then you can check out their license and begin your work that way. So you're guaranteed that these people are properly licensed to do that kind of work. When you go to some of these other search features and some of these other things you see the advertising for, they say that they've got licensed qualified contractors, but we found that in some cases unlicensed people are getting through the system, and you can't be guaranteed that these are licensed contractors on some of these other sites. But if you come to this new contractors board, find a license feature, you definitely are only going to be getting contractors who are properly licensed. So we'd encourage consumers to use that as a good resource for your first step.
Can you explain the engagement process and what the DA's office, the role of the DA's office is now going forward?
Sure, I can talk that at the sting operation itself, once the people gave our undercover investigators the bid, they were then notified that it was a sting operation and they were processed. We got down all the pertinent information, discussed with them what the problems were, what was going to be happening next. We told them that in the next few weeks they would be getting contacted by the district attorney's office with more information about the charges, information on a court date and the like. That gives us the time to put together the cases, to turn them over for review by the district attorney, and then Jill can talk about what's happening, what will happen next.
Well, once we get the reports, we'll be reviewing them. Our Consumer Fraud Division will be reviewing the reports and deciding whether or not there is sufficient evidence to file the charges. If a decision is made that the evidence is sufficient, then we'll go ahead and file charges. We will send a notice to the individual to come to court.
And what are the penalties included?
So for unlicensed contracting, the penalty is stiffer right now because we are under a disaster declaration, so that it is a felony. It's punishable by a term of imprisonment of 3 years.
And what about the misdemeanor?
The misdemeanor is punishable by up to 1 year in county jail.
And what fines are attached to that?
$10,000
For the misdemeanor?
No, for the felonies.
for the felonies. The misdemeanor generally is $1,000.
Were any of those folks that you, excuse me, that were part of this sting, were any of them actually arrested and brought into the Sonoma County system?
None of them were booked into the jail. And I believe that 10 of them are from Santa Rosa or from Sonoma County, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got 10 from here and 3 who came in from other counties.
And how much of what you're doing today is sort of designed to be kind of a deterrent effect as we move into this really kind of aggressive period of rebuilding?
Well, absolutely, it's designed to have a deterrent effect. I mean, we've been warning people ever since signs started going up on all these posts saying, don't come here unless you're licensed. We're trying to protect the community. So this isn't just about telling you about the success of the sting, it's also putting the word out, don't do what they did, or we're going to come after you.
And just a detailed question, what happens if you come on site and you find some work that has been done by an unlicensed contractor? What happens then?
No, it depends. If we come across work being done or something in progress where actually the person is still there, we come across that, we'll take the actions there. Chances are they'll either get some kind of a citation from us or potentially a notice to appear in court. if we do come across that. There have been a couple cases where we've come across some tree trimmers and the like trying to remove trees. So that definitely will happen. If we come on after the fact, we will try to work, determine who the homeowner is and work with them, let them know what their options are. Because one of the things that unlicensed contractors, we would never recommend that somebody goes and hires an unlicensed contractor, but the law is very clear about these people not having the right, if you don't pay them, to take you to court. They have no legal leverage to be able to get payment. So if you did hire somebody and had not paid them yet, technically by law, though we don't recommend this because it could lead to a whole other series of problems, you don't have to pay for them. But if you've already paid for them, you can take them to court and they don't have the legal right to defend themselves as being able to have that money. So you would have the ability, but you really don't want to go there. You don't want to take that chance. And the other important thing to note too is the Contractors Board does conduct sting operations like this on a weekly basis in different parts of the state. This isn't just something that we do in disaster areas. Our big goal overall, though, is not necessarily to put people out of work. Some of these people who are out working without a license conceivably could be a good licensed contractor. We want to work with them and to get them licensed, because the other part of this is these people are coming in trying to undercut and underbid the legitimate licensed contractors. They're taking away the work from them, and it's not a level playing field. If somebody's not paying the proper insurance, if they're not paying the proper, withholding the payroll taxes for their workers and covering them, there's ways they can cut corners to undercut the legitimate contractors, and in the end that all puts the consumers at risk. The worst thing that could happen is they got the unlicensed people out here working and somebody gets hurt. There's a chance they could come after the homeowner then to take care of their medical bills. And that's the last thing that these people, they may think they're going to save a buck, but as I mentioned earlier, the range of bids from some of these people, there's no guarantee they know what they're doing. To be able to frame something for $850, even if that's just the labor cost, I mean, that's just crazy how one would bid $13,000 and one would bid $850. You're really taking a chance when you hire these people.
So we know this is happening. Are these 13 the only ones who have been cited so far?
We've got a couple of different cases, and I can get the exact figures and get back to you, but there have been some cases in our sweeps where we have come across some, but certainly this is the most concerted effort, and the 13 that were caught here were the biggest number by far. There have been a few others, a handful of others that we've come across just in the stings. Most of those have been in the areas of tree removal.
Madam DA, question to you, pretty soon, in very short order, in fact, there are going to be a lot of contractor trucks out here with no doubt millions of dollars worth of tools and things like that. Is there any special penalty for somebody who comes out here specifically to take materials from contractors who might be busy doing their work and somebody decides they want to steal tools or something?
No, a thief is a thief, and I'm sure that the police department and the sheriff's office will be putting up the necessary patrols to protect anybody who's here doing work. I also think there are residents who are going to be starting living here, so they're going to need the protection of law enforcement as well.
I know that there has been a concerted effort by both the sheriffs and the police in the different areas. They've increased patrols, and they're keeping a good eye. I mean, we got here this morning to set up this, and I had 2 or 3 like neighborhood watch groups that came up and said, "What are you guys doing here?" So there's lots of eyes in this area, and it's important to say too is the licensed contractors are some of our best eyes and ears. They see what's going on out there, and they're calling us and contacting us, and we certainly do encourage that. Now, just take a couple of minutes and just run through for those as far as some of the tips for consumers, and we've talked about some of them. But I also wanted to talk about the down payment, because that's a big issue where you see a lot of times the unlicensed contractors, they'll say, well, I need about half the money up front to get started. So I'll just briefly touch on the law in California when it comes to down payments for home improvement jobs. It says no more than 10% or $1,000, whichever is less. So if you sign a contract for $5,000 for work, they can ask for no more than $500 as your down payment. So if you have somebody asking for a lot of money up front, that's a clear red flag to you that they may be trying to take advantage of you. So you want to be careful about that. We also briefly mentioned workers' compensation insurance. When you do look up a contractor's license on our website, one of the things we do show there is their workers' comp status. By law, if they do have workers, they have to provide us with their workers' comp information. You'll see that on the website. If they don't have workers, they have to file a form with us that says because they have no workers, they're exempt from that requirement. So if you look them up on our website and you see that they have an exemption, that they have no workers, but they come out and give you a bid and tell you they have a crew of 10, that's a serious, red flag that you want to take a look at. Now, there's a chance they may have gone to one of the leasing agencies that are out there that you can go to, but it's a sign that you want to check into it before you hire them, because as I mentioned earlier, the last thing you want to have happen is to have them, somebody get hurt on your property and then come after you to take care of the medical bills.
So you just explain sort of legally what if any steps are taken in the course of an investigation like this to avoid essentially falling into an entrapment trap where people are going to say, well, I never intended to do this, I was trapped into it, I mean, you guys know what entrapment is and how it works.
Sure. Well, in this case, these people were specifically advertising for doing fire rebuilding, and so they were out there actively looking for work, and by definition in law, just saying you can do the job, that is a violation. That's the advertising violation I talked about earlier. So all we did is we posed as a homeowner just like anybody. They solicited us to get called, and so we called them, followed through, and asked them to come out and give us a bid. They came out and gave us the bid, and at that point they don't have to do the work, they don't have to accept money from us, but just giving us the bid is then enables the contracting without a license. So we didn't target people who weren't actually looking for the work. So the entrapment case really, we don't believe, would hold up because they actually made the efforts to get the job.
And what would happen if you were conducting one of these things and you came across somebody who had whose status was questionable, immigration status? How does that work as a criminal justice issue if SCSO is not providing?
In our sting operations, to be honest with you, it's not really something that even comes up. When we ID them, we get their information, and if it happens to be a driver's license for another country or something, that's good enough for us. We don't have any reason to look any further because it doesn't affect their the abilities to file a criminal charge against them. So it really does not become an issue for us at all. Any other questions? Yeah. Anything else, Jill, you wanted to mention?
No.
Okay, so thank you for being here, and we would just encourage the consumers to take advantage of all the materials that are out there, not only on the Contractors Board website, but the number of websites that are here in Sonoma County. There are a lot of people. It's important for the survivors to know they're not alone. There's a lot of people out here trying to protect them, but it's important that these survivors, take those steps to protect themselves too, because there are going to be people out here trying to take advantage of them. Thank you, and we will be available if anybody needs any interviews on the side as well.